Every day we throw away things that could feed the earth. In this video, I'll show you a simple way to compost at home and give back to nature. Composting at home seems simple in theory. Take your kitchen scraps and yard waste, pile them together, and wait for nature to transform them into rich, dark soil. Yet, for many, the reality is less than ideal. Instead of a sweet, earthy aroma and crumbly compost, you're left with a smelly, soggy mess or a dry pile that never seems to break down. If you've ever wondered why your home composting method isn't working, you're not alone. Let's unravel the common pitfalls and discover how to turn your compost into a thriving ecosystem. First, let's understand what composting really is. Composting is a natural process that breaks down organic matter, like food scraps and yard waste, into a substance called humus. This transformation happens through the work of billions of microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, and even earthworms, who feed on the waste and, in the process, release nutrients that plants love. For composting to work efficiently, these tiny workers need the right environment, the right balance of materials, moisture, oxygen, and temperature. One of the most common reasons compost piles fail is an imbalance of materials. You may have heard the terms greens and browns. Greens are nitrogen-rich materials, like fruit and vegetable scraps, coffee grounds, and fresh grass clippings. Browns are carbon-rich, like dried leaves, straw, cardboard, and paper. Successful composting relies on a proper ratio of these ingredients. Too many greens and your pile becomes slimy and smelly, a sign of anaerobic decomposition where there isn't enough oxygen. Too many browns and your pile stays dry and decomposes very slowly. Many beginners toss whatever they have into the bin, hoping for the best. If you've noticed your compost is wet and foul-smelling, you probably need more browns. Add shredded newspaper, dry leaves, or small pieces of cardboard to absorb excess moisture and restore balance. If your pile is dry and stubbornly inert, it's time to mix in more greens, like kitchen scraps or fresh grass clippings, which provide the nitrogen that fuels rapid decomposition. The next challenge is moisture. Microorganisms need water to survive and do their job. However, too much water suffocates them, while too little leaves your pile inactive. The ideal compost should feel like a wrung-out sponge, moist but not dripping. If your compost is soggy, improve drainage by adding more browns or turning the pile to introduce air and evaporate excess water. If it's dry, sprinkle it with water as you turn the pile, or add more wet kitchen scraps. Oxygen is another critical component. Composting is an aerobic process, meaning it requires air. If your pile is left untouched, it can become compacted, cutting off oxygen and inviting anaerobic bacteria, which produce foul odors and slow decomposition. Turning your compost regularly, about once a week, fluffs it up and introduces new oxygen, keeping the aerobic microbes active and happy. If turning is difficult, consider using a compost tumbler, which makes aeration easy. Temperature plays a role too. Compost piles naturally heat up as microorganisms break down the materials. A well-maintained pile can reach temperatures between 130 and 160 degrees Fahrenheit, which helps kill weed seeds and pathogens. If your compost isn't heating up, it might be too small. Microbial activity generates heat, but only if there's enough material to sustain it. Try adding more waste and ensure a balanced mix of greens and browns. Insulating your pile with straw or cardboard can also help retain heat, especially in cooler climates. Another common mistake is adding the wrong materials. Not everything biodegradable belongs in your compost. Avoid meats, dairy, oils, and large quantities of cooked foods, which attract pests and slow decomposition. Diseased plants, invasive weeds, or pet waste should also be kept out, as they can introduce pathogens or unwanted seeds to your garden. Stick to fruit and vegetable scraps, coffee grounds, eggshells, grass clippings, leaves, and small amounts of paper or cardboard. Chop larger items into smaller pieces to speed up decomposition. The location of your compost pile matters too. Placing it directly on soil allows beneficial organisms like worms and insects to migrate in and help break down materials. If your pile is on concrete or in a closed plastic bin, microbial diversity may be limited, slowing decomposition. Choose a spot with good drainage, partial sun, and easy access for turning and monitoring. If you use a closed bin, make sure it has ventilation holes to allow airflow. Patience is key. Composting isn't instant. Even under ideal conditions, it can take several months for materials to fully break down. If you start a new pile, it may seem slow at first, but as microbes multiply and conditions improve, decomposition will accelerate. Resist the urge to check every day. Give your pile time to work. Sometimes, compost piles attract unwanted guests, like rodents or flies. This usually happens when food scraps are left exposed or inappropriate materials are added. To avoid this, bury fresh kitchen scraps under a layer of browns and never compost meats, dairy, or oily foods. Secure bins with tight-fitting lids and avoid overfilling. Let's not forget about scale. Small piles or bins may not generate enough heat or microbial activity to break down materials quickly. If your compost is slow, try combining several bins or increasing the volume of waste. More mass means more heat, faster decomposition, and better results. Finally, consider your climate. In colder regions, composting slows down during winter. Insulate your pile with straw or leaves and continue adding materials even if decomposition stalls. In spring, microbial activity will return and your pile will come back to life. To summarize, successful composting hinges on a few key principles. Balance your greens and browns, maintain proper moisture, turn your pile regularly to introduce oxygen, and pay attention to temperature and scale. Avoid composting materials that attract pests or slow decomposition, and place your pile in an accessible, well-drained spot. With a little attention and patience, you can transform kitchen and yard waste into nutrient-rich compost that enriches your garden, reduces landfill waste, and gives you a deeper connection to the cycles of nature. If your home composting method isn't working, don't be discouraged. Composting is a learning process, and small adjustments can make a big difference. Observe your pile, experiment with ratios, and remember the basics: air, water, and a balanced mix of organic materials. Soon, you'll be rewarded with the sweet smell of earth and the satisfaction of turning waste into life-giving soil. Composting isn't just a chore, it's a partnership with nature, and with a little care, anyone can master it. Your trash just became garden treasure. Thanks for watching. Subscribe now and join me every week for more composting and zero-waste living ideas.